Good morning, everyone. How are you today? Today we continue our lesson. Today I am going to teach you chapter 2, that is about techniques in language learning. Okay, what you are going to learn in this unit is some point. The first point is some points on the word technique, activity, task, exercise. Okay, number two, knowledge of good techniques and how to adapt them essential is for successful language teaching and learning. There are three basic decisions in planning a technique to use in class. Okay. 1 and 3. Identify the objective. Choose and adapt a technique to achieve the objective. Select suitable data, example like text, sentences, a visual example to use with the techniques. And point number 4 is about a technique can consist of one feature. Here is one feature of the technique. And number 5, you are going to learn a lesson and sequence technique. Number 6, you are going to learn technique and objective. Technique and objective, and the last point is the idea of control is important when planning a technique. Okay, so please let's move to point number 1. Okay, some point on the word technique, activity, task, and exercise, and others. Okay, look at the technique defined. What is the meaning of the word technique? Technique, the commonly used term are considered by some to be visually synonymous, including task, activity, procedure, practice, behavior, exercise, and immensity. Okay, look, the first one is what is task? The word task usually refers to a specialized form of technique or series of techniques closely allied with communicative, curricular, and as much as mainly have communicative goals. So task is a specialized form of technique or series of technique that we set for our students. Activity. Activity is a very popular term in the literature. An activity may refer to visually anything that learner do in the classroom. So anything that learner do in the classroom is called activity. Activity, role play, dual game, peer editing, small group information gap exercise, and much more. All of these are activities that students perform in class. Procedure. What is procedure? According to Richard and Roger, the word procedure means the actual moment-to-moment technique, practice, and behavior that in teaching a language according to a particular method. So procedure is the actual moment-to-moment technique, practice, and behavior. Practice. Practice is the activity or procedure that are offered doing the technique in order to be better. So after we set a task for a student and we guide the student and then we ask the student to practice the task Behavior. Behavior is the performance or activity that can be observed or recorded. So performance is how the student do the practice the techniques. Technique. Techniques is a method employed by the teacher in to direct learner activity toward achieving state objective. So technique is the method that teacher asks the student to practice to achieve the objective. Exercise. Exercise refers to a particular combination of a technique, data in a course book, or supplementary material. Okay, look at next point. Point number 2 is about knowledge of good techniques and how to adapt them is essential for successful language teaching and learning. So knowledge of choosing a good techniques is very important, and the way how to adapt them is very important too. If you want to achieve the objective of your lesson, you have to find the technique, choose a technique and data, and adapt the technique with the data. A technique is a practical procedure to help students learn a foreign language. The teacher planned and organized the technique, but it is the student who do the work in a techniques. So after we choose the techniques for a student to do, we can adapt the techniques, and the one that who practice the techniques is the student. You just ask the student to practice the technique in order to achieve the objective. The teacher should know the range of basic technique. So you have to know that which technique should be first, which technique should be next, and so on and so forth. You have to learn the technique. They should know how to adapt them for different student and purpose. So in order to achieve the objective, you have to know how to adapt, how to apply the techniques for your student to practice. Technique are the heart of the lesson. Yes, techniques is very important. Technique is the heart of the lesson. So when planning the lesson, you have to carefully choose the technique that is suitable for the level of the student, and the type of the lesson that you teach. Teacher should know how to match the technique with suitable data such as text, sentence, word, picture, real object, etc. to achieve a different objective. Yes, this is very important for the teacher. Being a teacher, you have to know how to adapt, how to match the technique with the data. Okay, point number 3. There are three basic decisions in planning a technique to use in class. The first one, what is objective? The second one is technique, and the third one is data. Okay, look at the three basic decisions in order to plan the lesson, plan a technique to use in a class. Okay, the first one is objective. What is objective, and how many types of objective are there? A language course should integrate both productive and process objective. So there are two type of objective: product objective and process objective. Okay, they also call learning objective and lesson management objective respectively. Or we can say learning objective and management objective. Nona also equate product objective and process objective like real world objective and pedagogic objective. What is product objective and what is perform product objective? We can say product objective or perform objective. Product objective or perform objective are concerned which should be able to do after instruction. The process objective delineate activities that students should undertake in the classroom so that to achieve the product objective, course goal, and so on. So product objective is the objective that you want after the student do the practice. And process objective is what we want our student to do the step by step in the classroom. Okay, sorry, please move on. Continue. So product objective is what we want our student to achieve after they practice the process objective. Characteristic of effective objective and way of defining them. Okay, objective should consist of three span: preface, verb, and description of behavior. Content, knowledge, and skills to be covered and mastered. So there are three span of consist in the objective, preface, verb, description of behavior, or we can say content, the content, knowledge, and skill. Each of the objective start with one uniform preface like at the end or by the end of this unit learner are expected to. So in order to write the objective you can start with at the end or by the end of this unit or this lesson the learner or the student are able to expect are expect to example like that. The verb articulate the behavior or activity of the student should do. So the verb that we use to describe in the objective must be action verb. We use the action verb to describe in the objective. The description of the behavior indicates the competency that the student should demonstrate. So what do we want our student to achieve at the end of the lesson? This is the behavior that is can be indicate can be competency. For performance objective, specifically they should comprise three components: behavior, performance or behavior, condition, and standard. Performance. Performance articulate the terminal performance. That is what the student will be able to do. Performance, what is the student will be able to do in class is performance. Connection describe the important or specific connection under which student will demonstrate that performance. So in what connection that the student perform the activity. And standard express the criteria of acceptable performance. So the performance must be in a standard way as well. The standard component can be couched in terms of three alternatives, like a specific standard, acceptable standard, by judge, we can say earn in high level of standard. This is the three alternative component of the standard. Move on. Process or management objective. Process objective, management objective are concerned with activity and content knowledge the learner will be able to do and study in the classroom. This is the process objective. What do we want our student to do step by step during the lesson in order to achieve the product objective we call process objective. Performance learning or product objective should focus on the outcome one wish to achieve. See, we focus on the outcome. Product objective focus on the outcome. Some important criteria for making objective effective include comprehensiveness. Comprehensiveness Okay, please move on. Sorry for interrupting. Okay, some important criteria for making objective effective include comprehensiveness. So your objective must be comprehensive, must be understood. Consistency must be consist. Okay, sorry for interrupting. Please continue. Okay, the objective must be attainability. Okay, so your objective the result must be attainable. Can be attainable. Suitability is suitable for the technique for the lesson. Okay, validity must be valid. Specificity must be specific, and as well as observability and measurability. So your objective must be specific, observable, can be observed, can be measured. Do not write the objective that cannot be measured. Especially you have to use the action verb. So action verb can be measurable. For linking verb or non-action verb cannot be measurable. Choose and adapt a suitable technique. These techniques will help students achieve the learning objective. So when we choose and adapt a suitable technique, when we choose the technique and adapt it in a correct way, so we can achieve the learning objective, the product objective. The student response is the evidence that students have learned something by doing the techniques. So we can measure the technique we said is achievable or not by using here. The student response is to measure if the technique is suitable or not. If the student can respond, so it means that we choose the right technique. Okay, select suitable data. So when we choose the techniques, we have to find the data. Find the data that is suitable with the technique. Data consists of a language example such as text, sentences, and words, and non-linguistic material like picture, mime, action, real object example. All of these are called data, like text, sentence, words, non-linguistic material like picture, mime, action, and real objects. These are called data. It is necessary to use data with every technique. So we should use data with every technique. Okay, which data, what techniques should we use? Okay. Some objective, some objective technique and data are the three most important elements in planning a technique to use in a class. Techniques can be consist of seven features. What are the seven features of the technique? Objective. The first is objective. Okay, why do we choose these techniques? Okay, what do we want? Okay, technique. Okay, what techniques do we choose? Data. What data do we use with the technique? Guide. How do we guide our the techniques? Student respond. How the student respond to the techniques? The student can be responsible for the techniques or not. The student can respond to the techniques or not. The response is the comprehension. Respond in production. So they understand the technique or not, so they can produce or they can achieve the technique or not. Important reason for making sure student give clear response. So when we set the techniques, we must be sure that the student respond clearly, give a clear response to the technique. So I mean that the techniques is can be attainable techniques, attainability. Work arrangement. So how do we want our students to practice the techniques in group, individual, or in pair, example, in a whole class? And time. How long does we want the student to spend time to do the techniques? Okay, number 5. Lesson is a sequence of techniques. As you know that from the beginning to the end of the lesson, it must be in order, chronological order, must be in sequence. So the techniques are in sequence as well. The advantages of techniques sequencing. The teacher can plan lesson easily if they understand techniques and know how to use them in a link of chains or sequence of technique. So from one activity to another activities, the technique must be linked together in the link of chains. So we can use the first technique as the advantage of the second techniques, and we use the second technique as the advantage of the third techniques, and so on and so forth. Planning a techniques, planning a technique of sequencing. Okay, think of one main technique first. First, you have to think one of the main techniques. Okay, plan a short technique to prepare for the main techniques. So if we can choose to find the main techniques, we can plan a short technique to link with the main technique. Think of two short lively techniques, warm up, example like warm up, closing the lesson, example like that. Okay, number 3. An example of a lesson built up with a sequence technique. So example here. The description of the lesson below is not a lesson plan, but a description of how the lesson can be built up from a sequence techniques. Is the lesson. This lesson assumes students are well trained in all the techniques and are used to working in pair and small group. Okay, the lesson end. What is the end of the lesson? Okay, by the end of the lesson, this lesson student can be described in written and spoken form, personal, like it is like using pattern like plus, like to plus infinitive in a positive and negative form, and use So and using useful language, vocabulary, word and phrases. This is the aim of the lesson. Okay, opening the lesson. Chatting with student. This is technique. This is the second technique. Just sample only, not the lesson plan. He or she is reintroducing the pattern in a natural way. Objective. Okay, what is the objective? By the end of the activity, student can recall the target pattern in a natural way along with useful vocabulary. So this is the objective. This is my objective for the these techniques. Feel welcome in the lesson, in the classroom, and relax with teacher. Okay, be involved while let comer arrive. Okay, take next one. Listen and perform. And, the first technique is set for student is listen and perform. Teacher says something, some action like drink coffee, play guitar, watch TV, example. The whole class volunteer try to mime the action. So this is the techniques. This is just the example. And what is the objective of doing these techniques? So every technique that we set, we have the objective. This is called some objective. We can say product objective. At the end of the list of the doing the technique student, what do we want the student to achieve? Listen and understand the phrases and give a response. Something like that. This is the objective. Okay, technique 2. Substitution drill and vegetable. This is another technique. The target is like and it's like. Example here. This is the techniques that we use with substitution drill vegetable. Objective. Why do we choose this technique? What do we want the student to achieve? This is called product objective. Okay. So every technique it have mass content objective. This is the small sub objective in a lesson. This is technique number 3 that link together from the first technique to these techniques. The true substitution drill. Okay, what do we want our students to do in these techniques? Please, the students work in pair, tell each other their like and dislike, possible addition activity, listen to it. Oh, example like the bicycle. Some students can say I like listen to it or I dislike listen to it or something like that. Okay, an objective. What do we want to our students to achieve by doing this technique? We want our students to take part in example conversation about language like. Right? This is the product objective, the sub objective in the lesson. Okay, technique 4. Okay, writing to statement. After we ask them to practice in the conversation, now we ask them to practice in the writing. Like this, like teacher can get students to call out more like this, like activity. We can ask them to work in a group of 3 using timetable phrase on the board. So we can use the substitution drill with table on the second techniques. Second techniques as the advantage of this technique, right? So the technique must be linked together in the link or chain, and we use X technique as the advantage of the other techniques. Objective: why we want our student to do this technique. By the end of this technique, student can write here. In this, we want our student practice writing. So at the end, they can write example. Simple like and dislike with help of other students. Mhm. This our objective of doing techniques. This technique is to practice writing. We want our students to practice writing. Example, write something clearly. Okay, knowing that other will read them in a few minutes. Okay, cooperate. So the student can work together. Okay, technique 5. Okay, class survey. What do we want our student to do with this technique? Each group would change the piece of paper here. So we can use the technique 4 as the advantages of technique 5. We can ask the student to change the paper that they write, the sentence that they write, right? So technique 4, the advantages of technique 5. Okay, the teacher will conduct a survey. Okay, example here. This is the procedure that we ask the student to do the practice, the techniques, and the objective. Why do we want our student to practice this technique? Okay, the student can listen and respond to the question, read for specific information, so we can ask the student to change the paper and read the sentence that their classmate have wrote. Okay, read and value other student writing, so we can survey the student writing is correct or not. Okay, closing the lesson. This is the other short technique for closing the lesson. We have open and close. The teacher make students sit quietly, sing and practice, and praise the student for their enthusiasm and cooperation. So at every lesson, at the end of the lesson, I have to pray for a student for their enthusiasm and cooperation. Cooperation, we have don't forget to sing your student. Extra techniques. We can set some extra technique if we have class. Okay, if there are still more time in the lesson after class survey, the teacher can use the following technique before closing the lesson. Okay, technique number 6, we can guess the action. Okay, we can set extra, this is extra techniques before we close the lesson if the time still be available. Student mind like dislike from the lesson and others try to guess. You can set a sub technique. Okay, continue. Discussion of the technique sequence. A teacher use techniques well can make a lesson out of chance or sequencing techniques. Teacher can use technique well can make lesson out of chance. Okay, technique 4, written statement. Technique 5, class survey. This is the in technique 5 we can use technique 4 to the advantage as the advantage of the technique 5. Okay, more. Number 5. The only important stages of a lesson are a short beginning, open, a long middle, or short end or closing. So the lesson must when opening the lesson must be short and open, and we focus so much on the middle. We need to spend more time on in the middle of the lesson, and at the end of the lesson, closing the lesson is short. So short at the beginning, short at the end, long in the middle. All lessons need to short beginning or a way of opening by chatting with a warm up or revision. So this is the how to open the lesson. Chatting, warm up, sometimes we review the lesson. In the last 1 minute of the lesson, teacher close or end the lesson with teacher led focus talk about aspect of the lesson, school, and chatting in general. So at the end of the lesson, we can chat with student. the aspect of the lesson, the school. Okay, number six, techniques and objective. Clear objective are an essential part of techniques and lesson plan. So when we set objective must be clear, attainable, okay, consistency, measurable, right? Clarity. Clear objective are an important part of planning technique and lesson. So when we have clear objective, we can choose the correct technique and we can choose the correct data to apply with the techniques and we can plan the lesson. A good teacher who can understand and use techniques well will find it much easier to find and to define and set the objective. So must be define objective. You have to understand the lesson. If you understand the lesson well, understand the techniques, so we can identify and state objective clearly. Objective should be stated in terms of what students do, not what the teacher do. So the objective must be stated on what the student do, not the teacher to do, right? Because we want our student to achieve, not our teaching, not the teacher to achieve. A technique can often have two types of objective: learning and product objective, or we can say management and process objective. So techniques, we have to think about the two objective, learning objective and product objective. We choose these techniques. How do we want our student to do this technique, and what do we want our student to achieve at the end of these techniques? Typical management objectives are choosing a warm-up techniques to light up the student at the beginning of the lesson. This is the management objective. Choosing a cool down technique to get the student quiet after a lively classroom language game. So after playing game or while playing game it will be noisy. So you have to choose the cool down technique, how to cool down our student after playing game. Introduce new techniques to student. Getting one technique to produce a response that can be used as a data. Getting one technique to produce a response that can be used as data. So we can use the first technique as the data for the second techniques. M state what a larger unit of teaching and learning hope to achieve. So what the aim of the lesson, what do we want to achieve. So on the last point, the idea of control is important when planning techniques. So being a teacher, you have to know all of this. So chapter 2 is very important. Control is an important concept when planning techniques for the student to do. So you have to know control techniques, the idea. Degree of control is a more helpful concept than category. Practice and production when designing techniques and planning the lesson. It is helpful for teacher to be able to indicate the amount of teacher control in the techniques is. So you have to indicate the amount of the control of your control in doing the techniques while student doing the techniques. And this is the end of the lesson. Thank you for paying attention. I hope that you will enjoy this lesson. And you have to watch this video again and again in order to get more and at home you have to read the book more to get some more idea. Unit 2 is a very important lesson because when we plan the lesson, we need to choose a topic. We choose the techniques, we find the technique, we find the data. We need to set a procedure for our student practice. We need to set the exercise for our student to do in the class, example like that. So this, in this chapter is very important. So I hope that you watch this video clearly and read the book. If you do not have any, if you have any question to ask, please ask me later. Otherwise, see you. Good luck. See you next video, next lesson.